Happy President's Day, everyone, and sorry for last week. I didn't do any videos. I was traveling, so I got a little interrupted, but I'm back and it's time to think about what happens next to Tesla. So last week was very, very volatile and interesting. And I hope you guys follow me on X. I was very active on X. It's a little easier to keep updating X. And we saw pretty dramatic things happening with Tesla. And there was some panic and some FUD, of course. FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt is always kicking in when Tesla is going down. So let's take a quick look what actually happened back then and think about what that all means for us. So when we look at the Tesla chart, we see what happened here last week. We hit that low down here of close to 325. And, we began the whole thing pretty much here close to above 400, and then we went all the way down this last month. So last week was very dramatic with this push down here, and we saw a very high volume rebound and ended up at 355. So what does it all mean? The big question is now, where are we going from here? We see that Tesla was in this downward trend. Here is a 6-month chart, and we see and I want to take you guys on a little tour, long-term perspective of Tesla, because I'm getting to a very important point that we have to become very strategic now, because we're in a very, very, very important phase. So what we saw here is before the election, we were at 250, roughly 250, then went all the way up. And that's very interesting, all the way up very quickly in the 6 days after the election, the week after the election, to actually 350. So we went to exactly the level where we are now. So the Trump effect, the immediate Trump effect, went to 350, to the level we are right now, and then dropped a little bit down to 311, and then had this crazy run up all the way to 480 in December. And then here was the Fed meeting, right? We saw this crash down here, and then it went downhill. And when we look at the NASDAQ in the same period, we see that there was definitely this boost for the election. And then we see also what happened here with Tesla, a little mirrored in the NASDAQ. But then the NASDAQ went flat, went a little down, but not too much, and went flat. Whereas Tesla, right, in this January period and December, January period, followed the NASDAQ, but with a stronger downward trend. So now we're sitting here, and the question is what happened. And my opinion about this whole situation. I'm midterm very bullish. I'm long-term super bullish. So to express this in numbers, my number for Tesla end of year, the fair future value based on my discounted cash flow models, is 770 for 2025. So 770 is my price target for 2025. That does not mean the stock has to get there, but it means it's the future fair value of the stock, that this is the true value of the stock. I think it's likely to overshoot and then drop below, but we'll get there in a second. And long term, my price target is 11,700 for 2030, also based on the DCF situation. Now, what I'm saying about the 2030 price point becomes more and more prevalent in the market. So more and more people understand that this is going to happen. We see ARK already pushing towards 5,000, not considering Optimus. We see Sam Basher, very great analyst, also talking about 10,000 roughly. So people are getting there, and they understand that there is a discounted cash flow for Optimus and Robotaxi that forces the stock up over time. So this is all easy, right? We all know where this ends in 5 years. We also have our suspicions that end of the year or throughout the year, we will see something above 600 if Robotaxi launches in time. But for us who want to generate alpha around a core position of Tesla, knowing what happens in the short term is actually absolutely crucial. It's one of the key drivers of success that differentiates what I call the group 3, the people who try to generate alpha on top of a core position, from the group 2, the people who just believe in Tesla and are all in on Tesla and long-term holders. They have an easy life. They're going to make a lot of money. A lot of you are in that pot, in that group. And that's a great group. But we want to be more aggressive and try to generate more alpha on top of it. And if we want to do that, if you enter into some leverage, some options, because we know what's happening, we know what's going to happen. The game around your core position and long-term holding comes down to a very simple question. Can we learn to predict not just what strategically and fundamentally is going to happen to Tesla? That's easy. Tesla is going to lead in Optimus. Tesla is going to lead in Robotaxi. There is no real competition for many reasons. We know that on Robotaxi, the only people who can generate equivalent technology are the Chinese, that the commoditization of FSD, in my opinion, is going to happen, but it's going to take until 2028 or something, where Tesla's data advantage is going to kind of dissipate. So in the meantime, only a handful or less than a handful of Chinese competitors, Huawei, for example, can compete with Tesla. But because of political reasons, no one is going to allow, in my opinion, Chinese robotaxis to roam the streets of Europe and the United States. So Tesla has an unfair moat and advantage against the only technological competitor they have. Waymo doesn't count, it's not a real competitor for many reasons. So in Robotaxi, Tesla is perfectly positioned to take the market in the West, which is probably the most valuable market outside China. On Optimus, I don't see any real competitor out there. That's a long story why, but it's a multi-dimensional assessment. It is not just about the hardware, having a nice looking robot. It's about the surrounding software. It's about the app ecosystem you have to develop to actually capture the world's specialized manufacturing industrial IP on Optimus and so on and so forth. In other words, with Optimus, you are also talking about trust systems and meta structures that, again, the West will even less allow China to capture in their countries. It's a national security issue. So again, Tesla has the same unfair advantage there and no competitor in the West. That is why we can be very optimistic about Tesla in the long term, that they will capture these enormous markets, maybe even in the midterm, in a 1 year, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months time frame, because it's pretty clear it's going to happen. But to generate alpha, we need to be a little more accurate than that. So to make this very clear, when we deal with options, right, when we want to take on very leveraged trades, the real money needs to come in and be realized in time frames of 2 to 3 weeks, right? That is my rule of thumb. If you have to take on an option position with a hypothesis what's going to happen, and you do not realize this opportunity, you are wrong on a 2 week, more than 2 week time frame. Let's give it some buffer and let's say more than 3 weeks time frame. You are in big trouble. In other words, if you predict something is going to happen next week and you are wrong by 4 weeks, and in week 5 exactly what you predicted is happening. Let's say you predict 415 or 420, and 420 is 4 weeks delayed. It might absolutely kill you because options are dealing with time and with time premiums. And they lose tremendous amount of value, even if you're right, if it takes too long. And we can go into that in a separate video, but there are tons of option courses out there. You see probably these matrix charts where you see the premiums and where the price of a stock has to go in order to hit your break even on options, depending on their, expiration date and their strike price and so blah, blah, blah. Long story short, in options, timing is absolutely crucial. So if you want to be successful here and really nail this once in a lifetime Tesla opportunity, not just nail it as long-term holders, but triple and quadruple nail it as options traders on top of it, we need to become very good in predicting, not just predicting the future in general, in principle, but predicting the short-term future. And if we can't do that, then we should not touch anything that has to do with options. In other words, don't do anything unless you're sure it works. And so our job right now is to identify these catalysts and try to figure out what the timeframes are that we can predict with certainty that certain things are going to happen. And we have to first determine how can we generate that certainty, when which announcement is going to happen. And we have to start predicting how the market is going to react to the announcement and what this announcement will be and when it will happen. That's not enough to say Elon says we launch in June, the Robotaxi network in Austin. That's not enough, because who knows, maybe Elon is wrong. Maybe he's exuberant. Maybe it's 2 months delayed and we are totally screwed. Maybe they launch and something goes wrong. Maybe they launch and it's great, but Wall Street, doesn't care. So we need to understand when, what is going to happen, with what level of success is it going to happen, and what the reaction of Wall Street is. And once we nail these 3 dimensions, there is a lot of upside for us. And it's worth a lot of time and effort to go into that and understand it. And that's how I view the next few months. Our great opportunity is that we have a narrowing time frame and window for 2 absolutely crucial catalysts that I distilled down to be the central catalysts for the next couple of months, maybe 3-4 months even. These 2 catalysts are the Robotaxi launch in June and the affordable Model Q launch at some point before, probably. Not Optimus. I think it's too early for Optimus. We all know Optimus is scheduled for later this year. So let's not focus on Optimus. Let's narrow down our time frame and ask ourselves the question: can we generate more certainty, and can we generate this critical insight on these 3 dimensions, on these 2 events? And all we need to do is maximize certainty for at least one of them, and we can put on some very good trades. That's kind of the mission for me in the coming weeks. And I'm going to attempt to do a bunch of interviews with people who are, in my opinion, experts on it. If you have ideas for anyone who I should talk to about that on YouTube here, let me know in the comments. Let me know on X. Now is the time to shoot me everyone you think can contribute to these 2 questions. When exactly is Model Q going to be announced? What is Model Q? Does it share components with Robotaxi? Does it mostly run on the Model Y and 3 manufacturing lines? How do we create maximum certainty around knowing that? If we know it, we win. And second, for Robotaxi, who are the experts who know the most about Robotaxi, about the current state of Robotaxi, and how we can create maximum certainty around the question: is June going to be the true launch date? Is Robotaxi going to launch as Cybercab, or just as Model Ys, or as a mix? How many, if Cybercabs, are going to be in Austin? Is it going to be 5, 10, 100 at launch? And how likely is it that they will nail this launch, which means that FSD works as perfectly as possible, or at least looks like it's working perfectly, maybe with remote operators. No one cares about that. I hope they have a lot of remote operators to make it super safe. So then we can predict, okay, if we get very confident about June, how good this launch will look like. With Cybercabs, it looks better. With remote operators, enough of them, it's become very safe. Do we know anything about pricing, or can we triangulate pricing? Are they gonna, radically undercut Uber at launch? I hope so, because that would generate the best, reporting on earnings, on Q2 earnings, when they report on the Robotaxi launch. Hopefully, some early metrics. Can they show that Uber imploded in Austin, which they could easily implode, right? If they launch 200 or 1,000, Robotaxis and charge $1 per mile, Uber is toast. It's gone. It implodes in Austin. If that happens, Uber crashes like crazy. Tesla goes up like crazy, because all the Wall Street analysts are going to type in, okay, they're going to immediately take over the entire Uber market. Or are they going to do a very weak launch and say we charge the same as Uber? There are some hiccups, so people keep using Uber. And the analysts say, well, they're not going to replace Uber, whatever. I think there will be massive extrapolation from these early metrics, which is dumb, but this is how it works. And so if Tesla comes in aggressively with a critical number of Cybercabs, big enough to rival Uber at the start in the Austin area, and be very aggressive on pricing, which means under 150, in my opinion, so that everyone who opens the Uber app and the Tesla app sees, whoa, this is way cheaper. That will lead to Uber implosion, and that will lead to Tesla stock going, I think, to 600, 700 by July or August. So if it launches in June, if Uber gets destroyed, if they have no hiccups, and if they report on these numbers, I would say with very high confidence that the share goes, doubles roughly. Maybe much more, but I think would double. Of course, none of this is investment advice. You're just listening to me rambling and triangulating here. But that tells you why I'm so into predicting this. So if we get very good in getting high confidence on these things, then I think we are in a very good position to take on some very aggressive trades that could pay off tremendously. And you know options. I mean, if we nail this and we are right about it, even in a 2 months buffer zone, you're talking about, 5, 10xing your money. But if you're wrong, we are screwed. So that's kind of how I see it. And I think knowing what's going to happen in June and adding the Model Q effect to it as a secondary catalyst to what's happening before puts us in a position to put on trades now, because we can predict pre-April earnings call trades. And it allows us to put on the very big trade for June, potentially, if we figure out there is high confidence. And this trade for June needs to be put on probably before April, partially. Then wait for the earnings call. What happens? If they announce too many things, it's probably going to go up from the earnings call. So it's good to enter positions before the earnings call, but leave some dry powder if something goes wrong in the earnings call, but does not undermine our confidence for June. You see a stock drop and can double down. So that's kind of my thinking around these things. So long story short, our job in the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, is to invest as much time as we can on X, you interacting with me, you throwing me the right people. I'm going out there, I'm going to interview them and pull them on YouTube, all the experts we can get our hands on, and really triangulate and nail down what is our confidence on these two important things from all necessary dimensions, Robotaxi, Model Q. So that's my tactical plan for the next 4 weeks. And it's going to be very exciting. Last week showed now is the time. We are really moving into game time here, extreme game time. This is one of these opportunities where we're potentially sitting just in front of a 2, 3, 4x of the stock. And we all know this is going to happen. But the question is a little piece of that happening before June, around April earnings, maybe in the next 3 weeks, a little piece of it, like plus 20% or something? Is the big piece, the 2, 3, 4x, going to happen in June, July, August? Or is it going to be totally delayed and we see a sideways or downwards move because something gets messed up, which we should be able to triangulate? And we have to wait until December, until, Robotaxi really launches maybe, and Optimus comes in. I'm pretty optimistic. Optimus is ahead of schedule, and that Elon's actually right about that. So either we get the big shot in June, July, August, or we get it in December. Maybe there's more problems end of December and we get it in March next year. Who knows? But I think it's guaranteed we get it by 2026. I think you get my message. We need to now really up our game and become really good in predicting these things. So follow me on X, join our group on X, the Reality Engineers and Tesla Trading Group, and let's get our information together and get this done. This is very important. This is how you make money. See you guys soon.